Well, hello, friends. Today we're sitting down with Luther Dickinson.
What's up?
Veteran of the North Mississippi Allstars, past member of the Black Crowes, producer. You produce acts like, Samantha Fish.
Yeah.
And currently he just recently released a duo record with old JD Simo, and they're promoting that and doing shows right now. So thank you for letting us sit down with you and chat a bit.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'd love if we could talk a little bit about your dad.
It's my favorite subject.
Okay. So Luther's dad, Jim, piano player, record producer, kind of North Mississippi, Memphis kind of dude.
Total Memphis dude.
Yeah, and really, made a lot of things happen. And so kind of give us a little bit about your dad.
So he was born in Little Rock. They traveled around when he was really young, but he moved to Memphis in the 50s, and he grew up, being a teenager in Memphis, Tennessee in the 50s who was into music, that's rock and roll heaven.
It's the epicenter.
Gets no better.
Yeah.
Literally listening to Dewey Phillips on the radio. And, he had one of two high school bands that played like rock and roll and blues on the high school circuit. Granted, he was 5 years younger than Elvis. So just say he was not, but he sang on the last Sun single, Cadillac Man, on the last legitimate Yellow Label Sun single.
Wow.
So he was younger than the original guys,
yeah.
But he grew up around it, and he saw Elvis, he saw everybody. Billy Lee Riley was really one of his heroes, because to my dad, Elvis was like, an alien, like a superstar. Obviously, the energy, he'd never seen anything like it before or since. But Billy Lee Riley, to my father, was like, oh, I could do that, And then it was Roland James on guitar. So his band opened up for Bo Diddley when he rolled through town, and that was a life-changing experience for he and I. But that's another story. That's how, long story short, that's how Dad figured out open tuning. He'd been playing Bo Diddley's whole repertoire his whole high school career.
Yeah.
But when he rolled through town, they were looking at his hands, and they were like, what is he doing? He's not even making chords. And they stayed up all night that night and just figured it out, like decoded open tuning.
That's amazing, because you think about the fact that, now we take all these things for granted.
Oh, yeah.
But at the time, it was like, what the hell is this guy doing? How is he making that sound? How is he able to have such a smooth transition in between those chords and to go all over the place?
I love that story. And for me, when I got my first guitar, Jump, decades later, he challenged me to learn 3 chords, and he'd get me a little amp.
Yeah.
But eventually my mom was like, just tune it open for him. And he did, and he showed me Bo Diddley, and I've been in open tuning ever since, So that really was a pivotal moment for us all.
Yeah.
And so he grew up in Memphis. He worked, like I said, he sang for Sun. Then he actually went to Baylor and studied theater to stay out of ROTC and stay out away from the draft.
Yeah.
But he regretted it because like he came back home and there were the marquees and there was, you know, the beginning of Stax, like everybody. But then he went folk, you know, when the first Dylan record, the tape first, and he had heard a tape first, you know, everybody went folk, you know. And then so as a young folkie in the mid-'60s, they were bohemians, not hippies. He was a rock and roll greaser kid.
Yeah.
Then turned folk bohemian. And then around that time, John Fahey, other gentlemen, Bill Barth, they were coming down from up north and discovering the blues guys. So check that out. Long story short, the Southern musicians loved the records, read the one book, The Country Blues by Samuel Charters, that was available. But the veil of segregation was such that the Southern kids didn't just reach out over the tracks and find Fred Lewis, Gus Cannon, Booker White, all.
They're right there.
All right there.
Yeah.
But these kids from up north came down with just enough of an open mind, different perspective. And once the Bohemian kids and the bluesmen got together, Memphis blew up in the mid-'60s. And they started doing the Memphis Country Blues Festivals.
Right.
And
there's some of those on YouTube.
It's
really good. There's one of them that starts with like Rufus Thomas with and it's like with the Barkays playing with them, and then it's all these, you know, Freddie Lewis and all these Booker White and
Fred McDowell.
Yeah.
And Dad's playing with Sleepy John and Yank Rochelle and Hammy Nixon.
Wow.
On that video, yeah. They kind of edited him out, you know. It was like, oh, there's a white dude, go back.
Yeah.
But Sleepy John loved his piano playing. So the dad, he was friends with Stanley Booth, who was running around with the Rolling Stones writing a book, which he eventually did. It took him decades. The Stones were towards the end of their tour and their work permit was out, but they wanted to record in America before they had to leave, leading up towards Altamont. And they wanted to go to Memphis and go to Stax. Yep. So Booth called my father to help facilitate this, and Dad was like, yo, but they had to keep it secret.
Yeah.
And he was like, they had just been to Memphis, and this whole city was on fire still from it.
Yeah.
And he was like, you can't keep it secret in Memphis. You know, if you got to stay under the radar, go to Muscle Shoals, nobody will know who they are.
Yeah.
So that's why they went. And Dad met him there. And he played on Wild Horses. He played piano on Wild Horses because Stu wouldn't play a minor chord.
Yeah.
He was a boogie-woogie player.
Yeah.
And he would not play a minor chord on piano. So Stu stood up.
Yeah.
And Dad slid on in there.
Slid in there and got to play on a Stones classic.
Man!
Yeah.
Then Wexler and Tom Dowd hired him and his band from Memphis to go to Miami and work for Atlantic.
Yeah.
So he worked with Jerry Jeff Walker and Being Free as my favorite record they did. Yeah. But the Aretha record, Spirit in the Dark, won a Grammy.
That's a great one.
They had some, oh man, they did that Sam the Sham, Sam Samudio.
Yeah.
And Dwayne Allman's on the scene.
Yeah.
So, and then that led up right to me being born. And then he started working with Riot Cooder.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Well, it's crazy, you know, growing up in that kind of environment.
But as a kid,
yeah,
it's just not normal.
Yeah, because you didn't know any different.
I knew Dad was cool, and I knew I loved the music, and always wanted to be a guitar player because he was always surrounded by awesome guitar players.
Yeah.
But it's just normal when you're a kid. It's weird. That's the funny thing.
Yeah. So, tell me about. I mean, like a lot of people, I love Ry Cooder, and I love how cantankerous he is, and he is so funny. I love his interviews. So what was it like just hanging? So Ry Cooder's at your house or whatever, you're kind of around Ry Cooder. What the hell was he like?
To be honest, they recorded Boomer Story and Muscle Shoals. The rest was all in California. Okay. So Dad would go to work and come home, but he would have cassettes. You know, he'd have rough mix. I grew up listening to rough mixes of everything he produced or played. Yeah. That was the ritual. He would come home, we'd listen to the tapes.
Yeah.
It used to be reel-to-reels.
Yeah.
And then cassettes. Or they'd tour Europe and come home. You know, he'd tell stories about Keltner and Cooder and all the shenanigans of the road. John Hyatt was playing rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
But no, Cooder, let me see, I guess I've shook his hand twice. We've spoken face to face maybe 3 times, but we've talked on the phone a few times. I love Ry, man.
Yeah.
But he taught my dad a lot, man. He
Like what?
I was just telling my friend about this because now we have kids and watching them shape their lives. When Dad realized that we were into music, he was like, "Oh no!" You know, he used to discourage us. Like, "Don't do it. Just copy. It's a hard life. Don't do it unless you have to."
Yeah.
And I never wanted to do anything else. And I was not even naturally talented. It was not a natural. I had a natural creative process, but not a natural musician. My brother was. But I knew I wanted to do it, and that could be a greater asset than
the desire
and the focus. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Dad, he was talking to Cooder. He's like, "Oh no, they want to be musicians." I'm like, and Cooder's like, "No, man, encourage them." He's like, "It's a worthy trade. It's a great craft. It's a skill. You can go anywhere and make a living as a musician." And I just told that to my friend about his kid, and I'm so glad he did, because it's true. Dad made his way in the studio. He didn't want to tour, but we've made our way on the road for the most part. But Cooder was right, man. And that mindset of, he is cantankerous, but when it comes to work, he's has a very good work ethic. When they would work like, from 9 to 5, 10 to 6. And he called it a job at work. He was very studious about it. It wasn't like to stay up all night and try and capture the magic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a lot of that going on in Memphis in the 70s.
Yeah. So it was I like that. The work ethic of treating it like work and not waiting for the muse to hit. It's
exactly.
Like the muse isn't going to hit unless you're working and doing it. You can't you can't just wait for, that's.
You got to be in the habit.
Yeah.
And especially now that people record by themselves so much, or as a writer too, you have to stay in the habit. You have to be in the habit of it. I love that. Jack White's got a great work ethic. What is it? Inspiration likes to find you at work.
Yes.
And I found it too. I did a film score in 2021, and it really suited my creative process. But I found that even when you sit down, and I would set BPMs, harmonic parameters, and just start improvising and layering, writing for the picture, not to film, but I would put it to film later. But anyway, I found that even when you think that nothing's going on, just keep playing, play through, and before you know it, you're in the zone and it starts happening. But it might take 10 minutes or an hour or whatever.
You can't just strike right away. Yeah. You got to put in some sweat.
But Cooder, man, his hand is this big. It's amazing, what he does. But so long story short story long. The first time I met him, we were playing at a festival in California, and his son Joaquin's band was playing.
Yeah.
Cooder was there. And this was our first tour. We were about to go overseas for the first time, 2000, first proper big tour. And I pulled up my Telecaster. I put a real Silvertone lipstick here and like a Teisco, what I call a paper foil, piece of shit microphonic, but I love those pickups in the middle of my telly. Screwed them right into the wood. I said, "Look, man, look, I did it." And he just went, "Mm-mm." Like, mm-mm. So that sent me on a journey. And then reading his interviews, I realized that he loves springs. Of course, the chamber.
Yeah.
But I found that led me, also because of a bunch of SGs I had, I like pickups mounted on springs on the pickguard more than mounted into wood. Some people are different.
Yeah.
But following that Cooder thing, is more springs the better. Because they really do add. To me, pickups mounted on the pickguard with springs, they sound more springy and bouncy, and I don't know, I like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, because it definitely changes the sound, and that's why a lot of guys are always trying to tamp down all that. And they purposefully take the springs out because they don't want that kind of microphonic thing. But it's like, for me, it's like, it's a great thing. It makes the guitar more alive.
Yeah, mic the spring, man.
Yeah, because it's like, when you can tap on the pick guard and it comes out, you hear it through the amp. It's like, that's a good thing. Like, you want that.
Maybe that's an indulgence, if you're a session player and you got to be clean and you know what I mean? But for us, that's like, man.
It's nice. So at what point do you start playing? Obviously, you get a guitar and you get the open tuning, and when do you start getting serious about it?
Well, before we get there, because it kind of segues in, later after Cooder, they toured, they made records, they did film scores. Then he started producing again, and that was amazing. It started with the True Believers from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
and then Green on Red, and then the Replacements, Pleased to Meet Me, and it went on and on and on. And Mojo Nixon, rest in peace, my brother. And by that time, I was 12, 13, 14, and I was eating up with it. At this time, I was practicing nonstop. I'd read every book in the Mississippi Library, the Hernando, there was nothing. I had like the homespun VHSs and cassettes, Guitar for the Practicing Musician, had the tablature, Andy Aldahort, taught me music theory in 2 pages, what I know of it.
Yeah.
It was so little back then, hit and rewind, moving the needle on the records.
Yeah.
But I was full in. And then here comes the Replacements. And Dad and his friends were fascinated westward because he was playing in open G tuning. He was in open tuning, but he was playing in the key of F. And they were like, how is he playing in other keys without a capo?
Yeah.
And he was doing like punk rock bar chords. Yes. In open tuning.
Yeah.
So Dad literally had me come to the studio to sit and watch and decipher what Westerberg was doing because they all wanted to steal this shit.
Hey kid.
Hey kid.
You go in there. I got to be working the board. You go out there and you steal his lick.
No, he literally sat me down as close as I am to you and said, "Hey Paul, why don't you redo that rhythm guitar on Red Red Wine real quick?"
Yeah.
And I was just like. So I had the shapes, It's so cool. And that was the beginning of my recording. They were so sweet that they let me play on Pleased to Meet Me. The song Shootin' Dirty Pool, Dad he had a concept. It's all about this concept for a music video. He wanted a bar fight in this music video. So he had me come play he had worked on Crossroads with Cooder, Steve Vai, which was huge. Let me digress for a second. Steve Vai, of course. Whoa!
Yeah.
Wow, Jack Butler's gonna like you.
Yeah.
But I grew up with blues, but that was my father's music and his friends. It's part of our community, but it never spoke to me. I just loved it as what they did. But watching Crossroads, I was literally in the car back from the theater. I was like, that blues is pretty cool, man. Let me have some of those tapes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It turned me on.
It was a cool movie. For what it, and also, Rye did a great job of the, the soundtrack and the epic guitar duel, at the end, which is it's a little ridiculous, the fact that he actually wins by doing the classical thing,
That pissed my dad off to no end.
Yeah, because it's like, you've just had Ry Cooder, playing all these great licks, and then all of a sudden Ralph Macchio beats, Steve Vai by miming Steve Vai's licks, that he played. But But still,
Hollywood ending.
Hollywood ending. But still, it was like, you got all that stuff. Of course, Rye's playing the stuff, but you got the kid with the
Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio with the Telecaster and the pig nose amp that's on his belt.
Good, dude. I was 13, 14, maybe 12. I guess I was 12 or 13. I was like, that's so cool. Yeah. Well, if you had your hands on that guitar as much as you got them on that girl's ass, you might be getting somewhere. But so anyway, I had some Steve Vai tricks.
Yeah.
And Dad had me play just like comical heavy metal noises on the Shootin' Dirty Pool.
Yeah.
But that's how I became friends with Tommy and Paul. Yeah. And I just saw Tommy last week. We played a gig together. He sounded fantastic. Wow. I love those guys.
Yeah.
So what were you asking me? Because I had to back up. When did I start playing?
So you start playing. You're doing the open tuning, and you kind of gave us a progression as you got more serious. So you've got credits as playing on recordings because your dad's including you on things. When did when are you out there playing gigs and making money and stuff on top of that? Besides,
man, that's a great question because that was some great advice of my father's. By the time I was 16, so I practiced, and I started writing songs. And Dad, he was like, you can't play like say Dad, David Hood, that community of session players. The concept of being able to play, it was serious. Yes. And Dad was like, I'm not gonna bullshit you. Like, you can't play. Cody was a natural musician. Just Dad was his greatest champion. He could play anything from the time he was 12. But he was like, you're gonna have to keep practicing. I'm not gonna bullshit you. You just gotta keep working, Then when I started writing songs, it dawned on me I could write songs. And he saw potential in the songs, the creative process. and that I do have, that I can apply to anything, be it doing the dishes or putting a band together or producing a record or writing a song or whatever. That's just the way I like to think about things, make things, and organize things. So we started writing songs, and that's when Dad said, okay. So he booked a session with us at Sam Phillips, Roland James.
Wow.
Roland James, he recorded everyone's first session in Memphis. And sure enough, the Dad played bass, and we went and recorded like 5 songs with Roland. Started a great relationship with Roland. He was a total. His playing on the Billy Lee Riley and the Jerry Lee Lewis records is insane.
It's great stuff. Yeah, it's fantastic.
He was such a cool cat.
I'm glad that in the last, that he has, gotten some credit.
Yes. Yes. Well, anytime Dylan or Bruce Springsteen would come to town, they'd always go see him. So anyway, we started working with Dad, and when he cut those demos with us, he said, oh, okay, so as a producer, everything started shifting, like our relationships became more dimensional, because it became producer, not Dad.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, well, okay, this is a garage band. They have the typical problems any band has. I know how to help this.
Yeah.
So how am I going to teach him? So let me play him through it. So he did not want to do this, but he had to. He booked a gig with the family band, Jim Dickinson and the Hardly Canned Playboys.
That's great.
It was true.
Hardly Can Playboys.
And it was brutal. He'd wake us up in the morning, summertime, wake us up early in the morning. We'd go in the living room, and he was singing through a solid state Sun amp. God, he was like, you're out of tune. It's worthless. That gives me PTSD to being in a recording studio on the you're out of tune, it's worthless on the talkback. Fuck. Or my brother, he'd be hammering that fucking, we called it the Doogie Howser keyboard. Hated that keyboard.
Yes.
Rolling through the same Sun amp.
Yeah.
You're dragging, do anything but drag. It's okay to rush, but don't drag. Hammering the 8th notes, and it was like, whoo, brutal. But he taught us, and we started playing. And man, around a year or so later, he said, look, you say you want to do this, you've got you have a guitar, an amp, and access to a car. You say you want to do it, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Go do it. Get out there. And he literally put me out on the streets hustling, and I've been hustling ever since, man.
Where were some of the places you first played in Memphis, or just around, or North Mississippi, or wherever?
Nah, it was Memphis. I didn't discover the North Mississippi scene for another like 10 years, till the early, mid-90s, Fat Possum Records. I mean, it was right in my neighborhood, but Fat Possum turned me on as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
But, man, it was a great all-age scene in Memphis, the punk rock. We didn't really play punk rock, but we definitely utilized the whole punk rock scene of selling tapes and hanging up handmade flyers, and played the Omni New Daisy in Memphis. Every week, they'd have their listing in the local paper, the Memphis Flyer, and at the bottom it'd say, local bands are needed. And he just gave a place, man. Mike Glenn, bless his heart, just supported every genre, it didn't matter, gave the kids a place to play. The Antenna Club, the classic punk rock club that everybody played at, from Black Flag to Flaming Lips to G.G. Allen, but we'd have all-age shows. I couldn't get into the serious shows.
Right.
But
old enough. Yeah.
The all-age show, the all-age scene was awesome, man. And that's so important. Really teaches, here we have dark matter, and I love that. I love taking my kids to shows. Say at Third Man in the Bloom. All-age shows are really important.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the teachers that you had also.
Well, my dad's Memphis partner, Lee Baker, he played second guitar with Furry Lewis and he also had a psychedelic rock band called Moloch. It was like very much like ZZ Top and like doing the thing. But Lee Baker was a great inspiration. One of the, with guitar, it's like you have electric and acoustic. You got to give both sides love. It's the yin and the yang. Neil Young's great at that.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page, so Alvin Youngblood Hart.
Yeah.
He's really actually pointed it out as a concept of the balance of both. But Lee Baker was a huge early influence. Ry Cooder, huge influence. But then, as a teenager, man, Shawn Lane put an ad in the paper.
Oh, yeah.
He would teach guitar lessons for $50 an hour. And I didn't know who Shawn was, but my father showed it to me. You go do that.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, I did. I drove up in the little car, and I give him $50 and we hang out all day. And he showed me a lot. So like Shawn would say, some players play 2 notes per string. A lot of players play, but he likes to play 3 notes per string. He got my hands spread out, which is still a worthy endeavor to keep that pinky from curling up,
Yeah.
But Shawn, he was just a genius. He was a beautiful cat. He would be like cooking dinner, watching a movie, smoking a joint, reciting the dialogue, and singing the film score all at once, and play me records, make me mixtapes. And, when I was a kid, I used to try and play as fast as I can. Now I try to play as slow and sparse as I can. But Shawn's so soulful with it, even when he was shredding. And, dude, you learn from your elders, but you also learn from your peers. The competitiveness of I grew up around Steve Solage. He was my best friend who now plays in the Hold Steady, playing as Tommy Simpson's band as well. And also Eric Gales has been kicking my ass since he was 14. I grew up in the same town with Eric Gales, man. And he's so good. And he's just such a wonderful place right now. His music is so fantastic. But Shawn Lane was huge, man. And what he told me was very akin to something my mother told me. She would say that if you're trying to do something and you're having to force it, you're doing it wrong. Well, what Shawn said the first time I went up there, he's like, what do you want to learn? I was like, speed and accuracy. And he just rolled his eyes like, oh, God. But he's like, if you're trying to do something and you find it hard, just find an easy way to do it. And the biggest example was he loved this combination of fingers. He would not use this combination of fingers.
Okay.
And he said, Paul Gilbert's great at it, but it was just never comfortable for Shawn. Yeah. So he used this. So he just kept these tied together. And here, there's Django, there's Jimi Hendrix, there's Junior Kimber. These are the, home base. And then the pinky, he would use the pinky for everything else. And, he would stretch as far as he could for his wide sweeps, sheets of sound, Shawnisms. But that was a great example. And I use that all the time when I'm arranging my guitar parts, or finding the right key or the right open tuning or whatever, like Dwayne Burnside taught me that, because I used to play heavy strings. He said, man, it's supposed to sound effortless, and it's good to have the illusion. You don't want to fight. You don't want to have people hear you fight your guitar, But it was really good advice that Shawn gave me. And then later he hired us to learn his material, and we would back him up. Our band would back him up in Memphis. And having to learn, he put out the Powers of 10, and then he started playing with Jonas Hellborg. And we had to learn the first record with Jonas and the Powers of 10. And having to learn that opened my ears wide open. And I had to I'd been studying records my whole life, but to learn that stuff really got intricate. I got better with my ears and transcribing things and learning the minutia of what music is doing. But we got burned playing with Shawn, and at that point, I became fascinated with R.L. Burnside and Mississippi Fred McDowell.
Yeah.
And I'd already been friends with Otha Turner and making records with Otha Turner, the fife and drum musicians. And I'd known about Fred McDowell my whole life, but I was fascinated with Fred. And I took the ability to transcribe things that Shawn taught me to Fred. And that was what led to the North Mississippi Allstars in '96. Was I couldn't take it any longer. I just couldn't write for the rock and roll band that we had anymore. Everything I wrote was like super rootsy and simple, and all I wanted to do was play hill country music, be it R.L. Burnside or Junior Kimbrough or Otha Turner or Fred McDowell. But what Shawn taught me, I wouldn't have been able to really get as deep into Mississippi Fred or Burnside without the discipline that Shawn taught me and like opening up my ears.
Yeah, and it sounds like he didn't just give you a short lesson. I mean, it's kind of like you hung with him, and he's kind of giving you philosophical things, and he's kind of showing you how to do it. You're kind of sponging up all these
He's a sweetheart, dude.
Yeah.
And we'd sit, he'd talk about shredding with me, and he'd say, but then Jimi Hendrix, and he'd sit and play Hendrix, and just like show me how soulful Hendrix was and how he appreciated that and could do that as well. But no, yeah, he played me. He turned me on to Cannonball Adderley, turned me on to classical music so much. Indian classical music, there's so much, man. And Shawn was a really great cat, a great friend. And we hung out together a lot. And the thing was, it's funny, when you're a teenager, you think people are old, but they're not. Like, he didn't live that long. He was really young. Yeah, I was so fortunate. And it's funny, there was one night at Colonel Bruce Hampton's show years later backstage at the Omni New Daisy Theater, and I was sitting, me, Colonel Bruce, Shawn Lane, and R.L. Burnside. And it was just the best. I was thinking about it last night. Like, what a moment of like two of my greatest influences, And my dad used to say, speaking of Burnside, like, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. You know, you watch that video of him playing Jumper on the Line. What he's doing is so complex, and the groove is so ferocious. That night Bruce and Shawn and I were joking about the diminished augmented, and RL, I looked over at RL, and he was like, "It's all E to me."
Yeah.
But that really sums up the whole experience.
Yeah. A lot of people know you, of course, from the North Mississippi Allstars, but also they know you from the time you played in the Black Crowes.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Man, we played with the Crows a couple of times. We opened up for the Crows. We opened up for them at Madison Square Garden when Mark Ford was back, and became friends with Rich. And we did a side project called Circle Sound. We played maybe 3 or 4 shows. And when Mark quit, and it took a little bit of time, but they hollered at me, and I was like, sure, let's do it. Let's do it. It was really fun.
Yeah.
And what was even great was we started writing. And we wrote some great songs. We did Warpaint and Before the Frost, After the Freeze. And man, the project we did at Levon's is really, really, really cool. They wrote some great songs. It was really fun.
Yeah.
But I did sign that NDA,
Yeah.
I did sign what Gorman did not sign.
Gotcha.
But dude, they were total, for the most part, 95% of the time, total professional gentlemen. It was really great. And it was like playing a rock and roll orchestra, It's fantastic.
Yeah. Were they as loud on stage as you hear about?
Good God, say what?
Yeah.
Fuck. Sven and I, man. I learned from Sven, because he was moving and walking so much, that if I played the low note of the chord, like a power chord, it clashed with him. Like, growing up a studio cat, you get really sensitive to clams or clashes.
Right.
I was like, fuck, man. I know a lot of players that are just plowed through, but I just can't help but try to make it sound as good as possible, and, to my ear. So I quit playing the bottom, the root, and letting him handle that end of it, at least because Lord knows, Rich was hammering it down himself.
Yeah.
And I asked Derek Trucks about that, and he said, yeah. He said when he was playing with Clapton, he never even hit the A string, much less the E string. But it was loud, but it was fun. It took me a while to get my bearings. It was the beginning of my journey of playing clean. The only way I could figure out to cut through that sound was they gave me Rich gave Chris a 3-5, and Chris gave it to me, and my first 3-5. And then I had one SG I liked, and between those two, and I had a Fuchs that was 150 watts. And I had a pedal board, but I pretty much just plugged straight in, and I settled into like this clean sound that cut through to a fault, really. I should have been more varied. Like, well, it's a Strat song, a Telly song. Yeah. But, you do it long enough, you're like, well, that's what Mark did, or that's what Audley did, and just doing my thing, And Chris liked it because he was such a deadhead.
That he liked the clean, the Jerry kind of clean.
Yeah. And he liked just the improvisational explorations that we were going into. So he didn't really care what it sounded like. He just liked the energy, So I was getting away with a lot. Yeah. But it wasn't appropriate. Looking back on it, but whatever it takes, like whatever it takes you to. Yeah. Then, I left the Crows and I didn't know what I was going to do. I just didn't want to play that music anymore. I was just burned on it. And, but thankfully, Phil Lesh started calling. Yeah. So then the clean sound journey goes even deeper. Because thank God I'd heard the Grateful Dead hanging out on the Black Crowes bus nonstop. But my whole life, I was all Jimi Hendrix and Allman Brothers. And my friends and I would fight about it. We appreciated the fruits of the parking lot to no end. Like Grateful Dead tour, supplied our whole youth culture of, whatever recreational situations we needed. But I always sidestepped the music. All my friends listened to it. Fish and the Grateful Dead, and I was always like, because I'm really easily influenced. Yeah. So very careful of what I listen to. So all Hendrix and the Brothers for me. And I remember tripping balls in my bedroom, being 18, listening to that. Tom Dowd did the remastered Live at the Fillmore box set, CD. Yeah. And I was like, that's what I want to do with my life, And dude, I should have dreamed bigger. But anyway.
So you get into this thing. So with the Crows, you're, to cut through, all of a sudden it's like, because if you do the same kind of, distorted thing, it's like you're not going to cut through because it's like it's all taking up the same frequency range. So at least by being clean, you have that attack and everything else that you can.
That was the only way I could get comfortable.
Yeah.
Ooh, then we did the acoustic tours, and I had a 125 Gibson, old with a really nice P90 in it. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, playing clean is great, man. I really love it. And then I had 2 daughters, and they have no tolerance for dirty guitar.
Really?
No tolerance for aggressive, dirty guitar at all. And I was like, well, thank God your mom liked it.
Yeah.
Otherwise
you wouldn't be here.
So they cleaned up my act too, and I, try to, and also the hearing damage of just so I can't, the whole mid-range neck pickup Gibson throaty feedback sound that I thrived on my whole life. Even playing clean with the Crows, I would still get mid-range feedback and sustain. Yeah. Because, it's fun. But, man, it turned on me, man. I cannot tolerate it anymore. I don't want to hear that at all. Those frequencies hurt. I'm really sensitive.
Yeah. So tell me how you got into production. So how do you end up, kind of starting to produce some records?
Well, the first thing I ever did was...
Because I guess you're following in your dad's footsteps. Yeah.
The first thing I ever did was Otha Turner. He was we met when I was a teenager. We actually met the day I played that first show, the Hardly Came Playboys. Yeah. Our family band's first show. Wow. His family band was playing, and we became friends that very day. And I would go and record them, and then I had a little opportunity with my friend David Katznelson to put a record out. So we took our ADAT machines down and set them up in his barn and had mics out in the trees. And so started producing. It was that creative process, really natural for me. And we always had like a 4-track or a little 8-track or a little home studio. So we were always recording. And being the son of, being second generation, third generation, what you have to look out for is a sense of entitlement, There's like the youthful confidence that is part of rock and roll, but you gotta But there is definitely a thing where you're like, yeah, of course I can do it. Yeah, let's do it, you know. But that's what being second generation anything is.
Yeah.
Be it sports or science or accounting or whatever.
Because you've grown up with it. It's not new. It's like you're comfortable in it.
And you see that it's easy. You know, if they can do it, you know, if they can do it, we can do it.
Well, also, and you've already seen how the paths and the way to get to places.
Exactly. It really helps.
Yeah.
But shit, what was the initial question?
So how you got into producing?
Oh yeah, producing. Well, it was funny. It was with the Allstars, we'd worked up the Mississippi. Long story short, Mississippi scene was so awesome in the mid to late '90s that we were totally happy just touring the local SEC, you know, just booking our own little shows. And totally easily made enough money to support ourselves. We lived in a single wide trailer at the family studio property. You know, we had a barn, a little studio in a barn, and a single wide trailer. It was easy, and just hanging out, going to Junior's juke joint every Sunday. We'd race home Saturday night, get Chris Chew into church Sunday morning, and we'd go to Junior's Sunday night. R.L. Burnside. These were musical families. So it's like the Kimbrough, the Turners, and the Burnsides. They were just like us. Yeah. We became friends with all the young musicians. It was fantastic. I quit going to Memphis completely, quit hanging out with all of my cronies that I grew up with. Totally focused on the hill country. And so we worked up a set, and we finally made a deal, and we had to make a record. And we wanted to record the music that we had. And our father was like, you can't make a record. That's your live set. He's like, you can't make a record of that. He's like, he just did not believe in that at all. He liked to record people, be it session players or bands, playing music that they barely know. He liked to capture them.
Yeah.
That early.
Yeah, the energy of that when you,
And the innocence.
There's still some ambiguity there of like what's going to happen. Yeah, even with the players while they're doing it.
Totally. Yeah. He loved manipulating that energy, spirit, and getting in there. And we made a record in that era with him of songs that we didn't know that well, you know, as like an experiment. He said, make this one for me and let me have this one. And then y'all do whatever you want. And then Alvin Youngblood Hart booked Dad in Memphis to do the first record there. Was it Start a Soul? I can't remember. So we knew Dad would be in Memphis, so we went into the studio while he was gone and recorded Shake Hands with Shorty. So we did it ourselves. So we started self-producing.
Yeah.
And we would leapfrog with Dad. He'd produce one, we'd produce one, back and forth, back and forth. Family business. Whew, that gets complicated. That's problematic and complicated, but beautiful.
Yeah.
And so we started at one point on the road. I'd been on the road so long, I was back at home in this Zebra Ranch with Dad working. And I was like, yeah, you know, I used to think I wanted to grow up and be like you, be a record producer, you know. And he's like, but I don't. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in the studio all the time. And he was like, yeah, you ain't got it.
But that was probably what you needed. I'll prove you wrong.
He's like, you ain't got it. He's like, you're too wishy-washy. He's like, to be a record producer, you got to be able to make a split-second decision and stick to it, even if you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, even to this day, I'm like, yo, man, that's just, I'm still not into that.
Yeah.
I don't mind pivoting and adjusting, but that's how he was.
Yeah.
Like, dude, do not go into one of his projects and start. He did not handle mutiny well.
Yeah. So you start. So even with like these North Mississippi All-Star things, you said we produced it.
My brother and I.
Okay. Yeah. And you know who took on which roles as far as producing? I mean, who was? I mean, were you really, equals, or did you kind of divide up duties or?
Nah, we just try to always find. It's funny, our band North Mississippi. My influences and Cody's influences are very different, and when we come together, we make this sound that neither one of us would make without the other.
Yeah.
You know, and Cody's a great producer, great engineer, and but our friend, one of our initial bass player friends from high school, he became an engineer at the University of Memphis, and we went on the road, but he stayed with Dad, and he's been running the Zebra Ranch, Kevin Houston, and we've made almost all of our records with him.
Yeah.
So we would work with him. Very much, our father taught us that relationship of producer-engineer. It's like we all grew into of doing it ourselves more and more and more and more. But he very much adhered to that template.
Yeah, the old school, you have the producer, then you have the engineer, not the producer-engineer guy. Yeah.
And don't let a musician dare touch the board, or like overstep the boundary, like etiquette, the whole thing, very serious.
Yeah.
So I was always like, get out of the way, that's not,
Yeah.
turn an EQ off.
Yeah. So how did you start working with Samantha Fish?
Man, Ruben Williams, her manager, is a beautiful cat, really a magic man of making things happen. And Ruben hired me.
Yeah.
Who really, Jim Lauderdale,
Yeah.
I think he was the first to ask me. I would produce my friends, and especially once my father passed away in 2009, started doing it more and more. And started producing my friends, and then Jim came to me and really helped, and then I met the Birds of Chicago.
Because Jim Lauderdale he's very prolific. I mean, he's done so many albums and he's worked with so many producers, and so you're going to get a lot. You're going to learn a lot working with a guy like that because he's seen so many different ways of doing things.
So fantastic. Yeah. And he just liked our vibe. He liked our studio in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Then I took him to Royal, and we worked with Boo.
Wow.
And he brought me here to Nashville to work at RCA. So we had a really great run collaborating.
Yeah.
Jim's a beast, man. So we were at the Zebra Ranch. He had Spooner Oldham, David Hood, my brother and I, the engineer. Like, it was an expensive session. It was a full-on session. And he had a voice memo of like a musical idea and a title. And I looked over at his lyric sheet, and it was just the title. And he's just running this whole session like we're coming up with the arrangement.
Yeah, and he's improvising too.
The whole time.
All the lyrics.
The whole time he's improvising.
Wow.
And we're keeping every take, and every time he's just writing more and more. And and then he comes back later and finishes the lyrics. Once we get the band track, he's really good at it. Yeah. But that was really cool to see the balls it takes. Like,
I'm just gonna have a title, and I'm gonna riff every time we go through it, and then I'm gonna, And so I guess he would come back then and do a final vocal then.
And what was so really impressive was the quality of the lyrics that he finished with. Like, really good. Like, he really not just filling in the blanks.
He's a pro of the highest caliber.
Beast.
He's been doing it forever. How did you move to Nashville? How'd you move here?
Man, we once we started dealing with school with our daughter, and then our second daughter, we were commuting 40 minutes one way up to Memphis and back. Yeah. And man, we just couldn't do it anymore. And we didn't want to move. I'd lived in Memphis before, but we didn't want to move back to Memphis. It had been a lateral move. And so we started looking around, and we came here for schools. And we didn't, it took a while to settle into the school, but what we did find was a group of like-minded people who had all come here looking for the same thing for their family.
Yeah.
And it's a great place for families, man, especially musical families.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, I'm gone all the time, and it's a shared experience for my wife. She's not the only mom there by herself, or, you know what I mean, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's very much more of a common. A lot of our crew now aren't musical families, but it's still, everyone came here looking for a type of alternative type of. Then we started homeschooling in 19, before 2020, so we were ahead of the game. Now they're back in school, but we've just been exploring raising kids is tricky.
Yeah, it is. It's not for the faint of heart.
And 2 daughters, total different experience.
Yeah.
Which I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
If I'd have had 2 boys, there would have been no way to avoid constantly comparing it to my experience with my brother, Cody.
Yeah.
But it's just all new territory.
And they'd be finding different ways to get into trouble too. So, ways that will surprise you. Yeah. So what did you think? Because Nashville, I think it's pretty well known now that Nashville has so many different musical styles and so many different players here that it's like you could do any kind of session here because there's so many good players and such. Did you feel pretty at home pretty quick here?
Man, what really is fantastic is the infrastructure. Like if you whatever you need to do, you can get it done here.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to get fixed, or like say back to 2020, whatever you need to sell. If somebody here is gonna buy it, man. I sold so much stuff in 2020.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
But you know, I haven't tried to break into the. I've become such a, like, you know, an indulgent artist type of player. You know, like I can just do what I can do. Like I've become a flavor player. You know what I mean? There's no way I could get the job done if I had to go in and you know, have a pedal board and have the whole arsenal of guitars and like.
Yeah.
Man, I have utmost respect for those guys.
That's a completely different thing.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and it is great, but those guys have to be kind of, vanilla is not the right word, but it's like they just have to be able to wear so many different hats and do so many different styles and sounds and gags and things like that, that it's just, yeah.
Back to JD Simo, man, you know, he moved here to break into the scene. Like I moved here for schools and infrastructure and a fantastic airport.
Yeah.
Love the airport. God, Jesus. Direct flights everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But JD, like he lived it. He did sessions. Like he did. Yeah. He went in the hard way. And look at him, man. He's like such an individual, such a beast, man. You let him free reign to do his own thing, man.
Yeah. How did y'all meet?
I heard a reputation. His reputation preceded him. I started hearing about Simo as one of the only bands. I was out west in the Bay Area, and these young kids, rockers, were talking about Simo because they would break the 20. Like one of the only bands that would jam for over 20 minutes, break the 20.
Break the 20.
About?
Yeah.
And then,
what does that mean?
Back then I was still on Instagram, so I reached out and we became friends and go over to his house. And as soon as I met he and Adam, I just felt like, oh man, like these are my dudes. Like,
yeah.
I felt totally comfortable. Yeah, I've done a couple of sessions, a handful of sessions, and that's cool. But jamming down in JD's studio, man, that's bonkers.
So when did y'all get the idea to do a record together?
Man, personally for me, well, musicians, we have like orbits, you know? And like, I was in John Hyatt's orbit for a while, or John Medeski's orbit, or Phil Lesh's orbit, you know? And Simo and we became friends, but then our orbits separated. Then we came back together.
Yeah.
And he called me to sit in at Analog. It was a little monthly gig that he had.
Yes.
And I came in and sit in. We had so much fun. And I brought my wife. And she was like, yo, he's great. Like, you should do more with him. I was like, yeah, you're right. He is great. So she encouraged me. And the gig went so well. We booked more gigs just for fun. And then we just started recording. We would just go write and record. It's so effortless with him. Like, literally, we'll just like sit down and whatever the first idea is, we'll follow. And if it's not hip, Adam won't play. But if it's hip enough, Adam will jump in.
I'm the drummer.
Yeah. And so he's really the producer. In my mind, you know, like he is the man behind the curtain because his beats are so sly and catchy. And like I said, if it's not hip, he's not even going to, you know, just next, you know, he'll just wait for us to fall into something cool.
Yeah.
And then JD will they asked me to sing just to participate. I didn't want to sing. I love working with great singers. The only reason I sing is just to if there's songs that I've written that I want to do or just to do the repertoire that I want to play, you know, I've had to sing by default. And that's been a journey in and to itself. But man, I've been so fortunate. Chris Robinson, Mavis Staples, John Hyatt, Patty Griffin, you know, JD Simo. It's crazy the singers I've been able to work with. For music to really resonate and vibrate at its most heightened potential, it's got to be the human voice that takes you to that place, you know.
So y'all did the record, and then y'all are touring right now, or you know, and you still have more dates coming up, you know, throughout the rest of 2024.
And what's so fun, JD got me back on the fuzz, baby. I had to build a Simo board.
just to have the old fuzz.
You got to, man. I couldn't bring a switchblade to the shotgun party.
Yeah.
Shit.
He'll take you down.
Dude, JD is a beast, man.
He is a beast. That's right.
Oh, it's been so much fun because I love fuzz. Like I said, Hendrix to me is the alpha and the omega. He's the best. But I always avoided Strats because I didn't want to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Charlie Christian, Jimi Hendrix. You know, he's my favorite, but I don't try to sound like him. You know, I can go. You know, I always end up going there whenever I get fuzzy.
Yeah.
But now it's so fun. It's been really fun to bust out the fuzz.
All right, we're going to talk gear. So one of the things that I found curious was, now this is probably a pretty old interview with you, but you said something to the effect that it was kind of like that whole Lightning Hopkins thing. The acoustic guitar with the DeArmond pickup was kind of like this kind of like tonal goal for you.
Ooh, I love that.
And it's a killer sound.
Totally. And I've got a couple of those. I've got one with flat wounds on it right now, like Old Harmony.
Yeah.
It hadn't been converted yet. It plays like hell, but it sounds great with a DeArmond.
Yeah.
And then I've got another one that's high strung right now.
Yeah.
Another DeArmond. And you know, there's a lot of the cheap Gretches have some killer little sound hole pickups in them. You know those little like $250 guitar, $250? Yeah, those are killer. I love those.
Yeah.
That's a really inspiring little parlor guitar.
Yeah. And when you said converted, what do you mean by that? When you have
Well, say Baxendale, the Harmony conversion.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, where they take the ladder bracing out and they make it X braced. Okay.
Huge fan of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a Sovereign for a lot of years. Oh, it's on the cover of my rock and roll blues record. Yeah. I'm in a kudzu patch holding up Baxendale conversion Sovereign with a DeArmond. Yeah, Lightning Hopkins. Nice. But you know, I never took them on the road. They're so microphonic. And good God, to plug one, you know, into a DI, that's way too hazardous.
Yeah. So you've kind of gotten into the kind of stratish solid body thing, and it looks like you're using like these wide range kind of Lawler pickups.
Yes, the Lawler Regals, the wide range. And my friend Steve Selvage turned me on to the parts caster concept, because man, I always wanted to play a loud-ass, wild electric guitar, but have it set up and felt like I was finger-picking an acoustic, like where it responded like an acoustic being finger-picked and open tuning and playing slide. But I wanted my slide to be able to like emulate like Hendrix's whammy bar. That's what I went for distorted slide. Yeah. Feedback slide is I would always think about Hendrix's whammy bar. So I followed the Gibson route. Yeah, because it just made sense, you know. I had a 125T, you know, et cetera, et cetera. My father's 175 from the 50s was fantastic. We designed the LD, the Luther Dickinson. It was a 335 semi-hollow with P90s, but you know, it was beautiful with a Bigsby for Cooder. Yeah. But I wasn't happy with the way it didn't resonate the way I wanted to. So we designed another one, which turned into the 330L. It's black, beautiful black, fully hollow, full scale, 335 with humbuckers and a Bigsby. Now that guitar is a beast, man. If you're down to control the feedback, man, especially tuned down half step to E flat, that guitar sings like a bird. And they were not able to put my name on it for Gibson political reasons at the time. But anyway, it was like the opposite of the Luther Dickinson 335. And after years and years of Gibson, Selvage turned me on to the wide range pickups in a Fender type of bolt-on guitar, and it changed my life. And you know, like I said, I was already looking for a cleaner sound, and the Regals, I love single coils, but I can't be running around dealing with the static and the buzz and the hum, you know. But they're civilized. They kind of sound like a more civilized gold foil almost, you know, or like a DeArmond.
Yeah.
They got a really clear quality that I really, really like. And the Fender scale, man, it suits low tune to finger picking super. I'm completely converted. So my friends and I started making vibratone. We did this one from scratch. This is the Rufus. This is the first one. We're building the second one right now. We've been doing parts casters of all sorts. This is my open C vibratone. It's
Nice.
just yeah.
Where are y'all painting these things?
Here in town, my friend Chris does it.
Yeah.
You know, but we designed this and built it from scratch, and it's changed my whole trip, man. I still love Gibson, and I've got my 335, the one that the Crows gave me, and my favorite SG, and I take those on the Almond Betts revivals. 'Cause, you know, once again, appropriate tool for the job.
Yeah.
You know, it's perfect. But for my own thing, I've been loving these.
Yeah. And then you've used these little pedal boards. So I mean, we've got a couple of them here, but this first one that you're plugged into, this would be kind of like your ground zero pedal board, where it's just a tuner and a Boss, you know, delay.
Yes.
And
the one spot.
And the one spot, yes.
This is what I use for the North Mississippi Allstars. For years, I was hooked on the Switchbone, a discrete tuner out, beautiful ground and polarity switches. It's fantastic. But with the Allstars, I just keep downsizing, make it easier, simpler. So I carry I have two of these on stage at any time.
Yeah.
So and the Polytune you can see in the sun.
Yeah.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
You know, how many times have you been at a festival like trying
You can't see anything. Yeah, and you're like, hey, can we get like a piece of cardboard or something and
Jesus.
get it where I can see the readout on my tuner so I can tune my guitar? Yeah.
And I love all delays, but it's like playing through Fender amps, Marshall amps on your backline. You know, it's like you can get them anywhere. You know, and Boss pedals, you know, you can get anywhere. The DD7, the DD8, as long as I can tap it into time. And this splits, so this is really all I need for the Allstars, because I use the tremolo speed and the reverb on the Fender amps, and then I like to have one amp. If I'm playing duo or trio, I like to have a clean amp and a dirty amp together.
Yeah.
I like the dimension. You know, I want to hear, if I'm going to have the fuzz, I want to hear the clean fundamental underneath it, you know. And one will have reverb and tremolo, and the other one won't. It just spreads it out in a trippy thing. So this has become, and the one spot, man, because the tuner, I can jump the power out. So I've just got one spot, and I'm jumping the power, and then this is my split here.
Yeah.
And I always have two of them on stage, because you never know. Something could go, sometimes the tuner goes out, sometimes the delay gets microphonic sometimes. I stomp on these so hard, I go through them. But if you're gonna do two amps, man, Blackberry Smoke Boys, turn me onto this. It's good for one noisy amp too, but if you have two amps, half the time one is gonna be buzzing, and this thing cleans it up. The Morley Hum Exterminator.
The Hum X, that's a great tool.
Best investment, man. I got a bunch of these.
Yeah.
So I've retired the old Switchbone, but I still love it. I use it in the studio. I use it all the time, but I don't carry it anymore.
So what? We're gonna get onto your Simo pedal board here for the duo stuff. But first, so a lot of times are you backlining stuff, or are you taking amps with you? So like when you take your own amps, what do you take?
Category 5, man.
Category 5.
Yeah,
Okay.
these guys, we designed this.
Yeah.
And I've got a trailer truck full of Category 5 amps. I use the Lizzie, which is like there's an 800 side and a 100 watt side. It's kind of like a Marshall 800.
Yeah.
It's got a preamp.
Wow.
And so that's my dirty amp.
Yeah.
And then I'll have, we designed the LD50 or the LD100, which is kind of like a loud ass twin. It's kind of like a loud plexi, but with tremolo and reverb.
Yeah.
You know? Because I grew up playing Marshalls and Fenders, but Category 5 is so wonderful. Samantha Fish, Anders Oswald, Tam Benoit.
Yeah.
They all turn me on to them, and it's beautiful, beautiful company.
Yeah, they're great people.
They sound great, and they're so useful and helpful on the road. So that's what I have in the truck. And then I'll backline a Fender amp. And lately I've been using a Mesa Boogie. Been asked for a Lone Star. Really nice, clean sound. that complements the Fender clean sound well. And then the dirty, there's a lot of different textures because for playing slide, I found that it really does help to have some meat on the bone, some dirt. Otherwise, it just gets so glassy. You know?
So what amps are you taking out with Simo on the duo tour?
Let me see. Maybe the LD combo, but that's in backline too. We'll just get. He likes a Princeton. I like a Deluxe. I like more headroom than he does. He likes the speakers to sag and break up, and me, I still have I'm more comfortable playing clean than fuzzy, so I like the headroom. I play really soft. Actually, it's all based on, like with the Crows with a 150 watt amp, or like with my brother and I with the North Mississippi. We have loud gear, but we've finally gotten to where we like if this is 100%, we're down here at 50 or 75, and I'll only get really loud a couple of times a night just to show people. It's kind of fun because I just like reach back and just like, I'm like, whoa. Yeah. But I mean, I grew up playing at 110. Yeah. Playing on 11 for decades, but I just don't do it anymore. I play really soft. My hands are so weird, like I'm double jointed.
Wow.
Yeah, push that.
Golly, that's
it just
weird.
Collapses. I got no strength in my hands. And the iPhone has destroyed my thumbs. Everybody, do not use your fucking thumbs on the devices. It's called Dr. Sirvain's tenosynovitis. Yeah. It started with Blackberries and Nintendo. I woke up one day, I couldn't play, I couldn't make a fist. Yeah. This tendon right here just clamped shut. Yeah. Disaster, man, the thumbs. But anyway, all that to say, I play really light.
So then with JD on the duo thing, you had to make up another board because you needed something with fuzz on it.
Yeah.
And so let's show that.
Well, I got the Crazy Horse, which is fantastic, out of Austin. Yeah. And my friend Spencer Ross makes all these pedals. The whole Simo record is the S Ross FX Hill Country Fuzz. That's all. But I took this one, the Bumble ODS on the road. And then the Octron I've been using for years, a really, really nasty octave pedal, up, down, and in the center. And then a delay here. This modular, I could have a third amp splitting here. Shawn Lane would do that. Yeah. Split multiples. But with Simo, I'm just splitting modular. Last tour, I came out of the tone bone into here, just to keep the tuner out of the signal. Tuners do, definitely.
Yeah, they're a necessary evil, but it's nice to get them out of the chain.
It really is. Yeah. One of my dumb-ass, stupid jokes of all time was Derek Trucks. For a period of time, he had a rack mount tuner up above his amp. And I was like, damn, Derek, I just can't figure out how you're getting into the tuner, man. And he was like, yeah. Like, oh, true bypass.
Yeah, that's right. He unplugs the amp, plugs into the tuner,
checks the
tunes
tuner,
up, plugs it back in.
That did have a profound effect on, like this kind of modular, Yeah. Try to keep it as clean as possible.
So we are going to let's look underneath the Simo board.
Oh
the duo board, so we can see this. So this is the new guy. This is the XP5 that you've got under there.
Cleverly covered up. Sorry.
Yes. So, but you got it in there. You got it taped in. But this is a new thing for us, and so it's isolated, but it's got 5 outputs, and so it really keeps the noise level down and everything.
It's so good for that.
Yeah. See, now it works. You didn't have it plugged in.
Operator error.
Yeah.
Yo, I've got no muscle memory with this new board because I've been playing without a board for years. I mean, I've been using just this for years. So with Simo, it's like, whoo! It's like this story of when I took the mushrooms with Chris at the Fillmore with the Black Crows. I was like, oh my God, dude. It was like, the music was not a problem, but the switching guitars and the pedal board shit, that was not inspiring.
Yeah. Let us hear the different fuzzes real quick.
Yeah. So with Simo, we're sitting down for the most part, which is really fun because I get to get down here and get all flavorific with the pedals. The Bumble ODS. Let me turn the clean down. So like I said, I like to have a clean and a dirty, so I'll just turn the clean down. But the Octron by itself. Love the way that thing sounds, man. It's so gangster. See what the Crazy Horse got going on. Those are all of them.
Yeah, it's really cool. The 2 amp thing and having kind of the fuzz going through one and having the tremolo and verb on the other one is just that's a cool sound and a cool way of dealing with that, because it's like when you put fuzz through like tremolo and reverb, it gets wacky. But when you've got the clean that still kind of gives you the impact of that, but then you got the fuzziness, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I don't do that with Simo. I don't do it when there's 2 guitars, but anytime it's a duo or trio, solo duo or trio, I love the dimensional. It's funny hearing Bukovac. I mean, my God, man, he's so much wisdom, but he talks about pedals and he says he doesn't like to hear the natural guitar coming through the distortion pedal. Yeah. But that's one of the things where I'm like, I like it. I like the dimension. Yeah. Yeah. But and it's cool because it doesn't matter how what's the word? How mutated the note gets, or how not muffled, but how. Yeah, I'm sorry, lost it. I lost
how affected and such.
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee.
Need coffee.
Espresso. So you've got the tour going on with JD. You're gonna do that, and what else do you have going on in 2025?
Man, I turned 50 last year, and my resolution was to finish all the projects I had on the back burner. Yeah. And man, it's been a bunch of stuff is coming out. My children's record came out with that on the cover. Magic music for family folks. I made with my kids, for my kids. Mainly songs that my dad taught me. So that was a cool one. The first one I finished, because it had been just simmering for years and years and years. The JD record came out, but we made that fast. We weren't even trying to make a record. We were just having fun. Yeah. I have an ambient drone kind of record I made with my friend David Katz-Nelson called Gravel Springs. Crow's Nest Meditations. Just last week, I made a record with, I did a live recording with Medeski and Johnny Vodakovich and Dominic Davis down in this museum in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And that came out last week. It's called Mississippi Murals. It's beautiful not orchestral, but instrumental project. And Medeski really showcased on that, playing B3 and piano. So those have all come out, and because I finished them last year. Yeah. And that really felt good. And next year, 25, is the 25th anniversary of the North Mississippi debut, Shake Hands with Shorty. So that's the problem with homemade guitars, man. You just can't, our logos, we can't keep nothing nice, man. Fucking screws would be.
You gotta have a screwdriver handy.
Always.
Yes, you always gotta.
I learned that from Prince, man. You get the washer.
Yeah.
Dude, that's been a game changer. Anyway, so we're doing the new All-Star record called Still Shakin'.
Nice.
Yeah, and a couple of originals, but also a lot of hill country. We got Dwayne Burnside featured on there. Our man Ray Ray, who's been playing with us. Joey Williams from the Blind Boys of Alabama, who's been playing with us.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really fun record.
Yeah.
So that's next year.
Well, Luther, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
My pleasure.
It was a real pleasure, and thank you. And you all need to go out and see Luther, whether it's with the JD or with the North Mississippi Allstars. Just go out and see Luther play.
Thank you.